Thank you so much. We're pleased to be here tonight. My name is Paul Lounsbury. Singing with me tonight on your right is Diane Regal from Livingston Manor. And on bass, my good friend Keith Edwards from Neversink. Thank you. And I'm especially honored to have a group of artists with me tonight that I've never experienced anything like this in my musical career. They're called the Vanaver Caravan, and they're from the Rosendale, Ulster County area. I'd like to present a song to you I wrote about 11 years ago. My family is from Hurleyville, and my family has been on top of Columbia Hill in Hurleyville for over 150 years. And I wrote a song based on the tales told by my father, my grandparents, and aunts and uncles, and a wonderful book that maybe many of you are familiar with called To the Mountains by Rail. And it's a story about how this area here in our Sullivan County here, the resort industry that grew because of the Ontario and Western Railroad, the O&W. And my song takes you back to the 1870s, if you will. And the person talking is my great-grandfather, who at that time was a farmer, and there was no railroad, but he tilled the soil here in these lands. And he talked about how the times here would change forever as the railroad was coming into our county. And the song changes again, the song changes tempo and melody, and now we're into the 1920s, and it's my grandfather talking about how at that point in time was the heyday of Sullivan County with over 1,100 resorts. And people would come up by the thousands on the O&W Railroad every weekend. And then, as many of you may know, in 1957, the railroad went out of business, and along with it, a lot of resorts that we see that are empty. And not just the railroad, but a lot of things changed our county. But this is a song based on all these tales and this book, and I call it a Catskill Mountain Trilogy. And I would like you to welcome also the Vanaver Caravan, who has put weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of work as they have choreographed this story, and I'm deeply honored to share the stage with them. So once again, this is called the Catskill Mountain Trilogy. Step back with me over 120 years ago to the 1870s. Before the railroad came to town, when the Catskills were so quiet, you could only hear the sound of the wind in the trees and the babbling brook below. And if you listen very closely, you hear the falling of the snow. Things used to be, living in the mountains with his family, when being a farmer was the best thing you could be, for the Mother Earth would give a man most everything he needs. Oh yes, most everything he needs. But the times were a-changin', as a man could clearly see. The days of old were passing in the course of history. The railroad was a-comin', the tracks grew closer each day. The mountains soon were open, they'd never be the same. Oh no, no, they'd never be the same. and cinders, a train is climbing high up to the Catskill Mountains, Ontario and Western Line, up through the Highview Tunnel, mile long inside, down into the valley, we're running right on time. With 10 full boxcars and 20 bags of mail, 500 people to the mountains by rail. With 10 full boxcars and 20 bags of mail, 500 people to the mountains by rail. Now up in the Catskill Mountains, there's lots of fine hotels and that good, clean mountain air city folks love so well. So hop aboard that train, lad, 3 times a day she'll run up to the hills where you can find your own place in the sun. 10 full boxcars and 20 bags of mail, 500 people to the mountains by rail. With 10 full boxcars and 20 bags of mail, 500 people to the mountains by rail. Now every Sunday afternoon the train goes out again, heading down into Yorktown, what a lovely time it's been. Down through the Luzon station, down the Red Hill grade, keep a firm hand on the brakes, boys, downhill all the way. With 10 full milk cars and tons of ice for sale, down to New York City from the mountains by rail. With 10 full milk cars and tons of ice for sale, down to New York City from the mountains by rail. I remember a time not very long ago when the railroad was a-running strong and the streets were paved with gold. The fancy hotel coaches were lying along the rails to greet the throngs of those who came to the mountains by rail. But the times kept a-changing, they'd never be the same. People drove their fancy cars and they left the old steam trains. The magic of the mountains, it just seemed to fade away. Now forgotten empty buildings are ghosts of yesterday, oh no. Now they're ghosts, just ghosts of yesterday. Now the trains are in the scrapyards, the rails were hauled away. The stations are all closed now, only memories remain. But memories are forever, and we'll pass along the tales of the glorious years that came to pass to the mountains. To the mountains by rail.
Caravan. Aren't they wonderful? Absolutely wonderful.
Diane Regal and Keith Edwards, thank you so much for coming out. I see a great time waiting for our county here. The places and people may change, but I flew in over the mountains today to get here, and seeing Sullivan County from the air is just really, really, really something. So, great times are coming. Thanks. God bless.
Thank you, Paul Lounsbury and the Vanaver Caravan.